we're going to go into, ooh. Hold on.
Hey. Oh.
What's that?
I said you look beautiful today.
Oh, I was going to say same thing about you.
Well, thanks.
This is my newest office.
I love it.
I have my yoga mat.
Aw.
These are my books.
That's so great.
I can just pull on them as I need. One of the books that I want to refer to, well, you can see how well this has been read.
Yeah.
David Hawkins. I don't know if you've ever read him.
I'm familiar with him, but I've not read him, and I'm not familiar with that book. That's awesome. I'll have to check it out.
Oh my gosh. He's got, I don't know how many. This one's Relativity and Subjectivity.
Huh.
Such a great book. But I noticed that, of course, that we think a lot the same. We have similar views on things. Maybe is a better way to say that. No two people think the same. And of course, I did one with Val last week, and we have, a schedule going out. Just people that I really resonate with, that I would love to just talk to and get your take and angle on things. So I'm just so excited.
I love connecting with like-minded people. So I'm excited to, it's been a while since we've chatted.
It's been a while, and we've known each other for a while. We just kind of cross each other's paths here and there, right? Over the course of, 10 years or something.
Yeah. Probably about 10-ish years.
Yeah. And man, our lives have changed, right? In those 10 years. I mean, it's amazing
dramatically
what you've done. It's so cool to see how we evolve and how we shift and where we go and what draws us in. So we got a little clip of your morning. So what's your regular morning ritual? What do you do when you get up in the morning? What is one thing that you don't skip?
My coffee. I don't skip my coffee and my quiet time. I try to get up before my kids, and I always actually get up before my kids. And now we're transitioning into summer, and so schedules are just now starting to shift. So I was just thinking about that, like, okay, what time do I want to wake up now so that I can still have my quiet coffee time? One of my favorite things to do is both my husband and I get to connect for a minute in the morning with our coffee and just kind of, chat. One of the things that he's been doing lately that is kind of fun that we both been doing is, what are 3 things you're excited for today? And so we'll kind of exchange that. And usually I'll grab a book if I can and try and have a little, like this morning I meditated for a bit. Just because, when your day starts, it starts.
Like a bat out of hell, right?
Yeah. And I feel like right now, I was just talking to my sister about this last night. I said, is it just me, or normally this time of year is really busy because kids are transitioning out of school and going into summer, but this feels extra busy than I've felt in a while. So I'm like, this is just interesting.
Well, and it could be, things are speeding up. We know that, right? Not only that, one thing I've noticed is that when I'm dealing with stuff and I have to work through it, I seem to work through it quicker. Things are just like on fast forward. At least that's what it feels like to me. I'm not in the same time of life as you. I've got 5 grandkids. My kids are grown and gone. I'm alone a lot.
We do have a grandbaby on the way, so we will be grandparents here in July.
You do? Oh my gosh, I missed that. That's exciting. Yeah. So exciting. I actually just got news that number 6 is on the way.
Oh, that is so exciting. Oh, so
fun. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So I know we kind of talked about 2 different topics, consciousness and visualization. And I know that in your shamanic, which is interesting that you and Val have, similar draws in that direction. I've never, I've done one small one with Val, but I have a shaman that I see who's in my area up here about 3 times, and visualization is a huge part of it. It's a
journey.
huge
Yeah.
part of the journey.
Mhm.
And I just would love to get your take on first what they are individually and then how they work together. So what would you say your definition of consciousness is?
Well, I'm currently also studying NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, which is all around the superconscious, the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. So in shaman land, we work with shamans travel in between the worlds on behalf of another or on behalf of themselves. So as a shaman, which I've been practicing now for about 8 years, we go into the subconscious all the time. Like that's one of the main places we go to because and the subconscious and the unconscious are they're so similar that it's really interesting. They're just very subtle differences, and so often they get really interchanged. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I'm touching on the subconscious unconscious is because really those are the aspects that drive the consciousness, right? So especially in NLP, that's more and more of what I'm learning. I love energetics. Like it is something I've always been drawn to. And in my training this past year, I remember sitting in our circle, and I mean, I've seen people have dramatic shifts in healing sessions. And me personally, I've had dramatic shifts in healing sessions, but there's always that mental piece, right? The mental piece that it's like I can have a client walk out the door that, yes, just had this, we cleared so much trauma from past life or a lineage or whatever it is, or even an entity that we cleared. Awesome. They feel the difference and our feeling body is really important. But if mentally they're still running the same programs and they're still in the same I'm a victim mentality or whatever it is, and they're not letting that shift and their consciousness is still, their unconscious is driving the conscious, then they'll reintegrate the energetics. And so
Makes
that
sense.
was that was one of the I sat there and I'm like, gosh, there's a piece missing for me. And so I'm diving into NLP now. But um, the visualization and the consciousness. So when I have a client, or when you probably experience this in a session, every session is so unique because every person is unique. And so oftentimes, as far as our healing, I am drawn, and I would imagine most shamans are because that's part of our roots, to guiding our client on a journey. And then that now brings the unconscious conscious. And with the visualization, then there's tools in the consciousness of either bringing somebody's higher self in, or bringing God in, or bringing whatever it is to have that conversation that needs to be had. You're using visualization and you're bringing the unconscious conscious. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times we have these suppressed events, emotions, whatever it is that we push down into the unconscious. And by having those visualizations, we can bring it conscious. Now, I don't know if this is where you were wanting to go in the
How
conversation,
about it?
but here we go.
Yeah,
I think
we
one of the most fascinating things to me about our minds, especially, is the fact that they're so programmable. So when you're talking about what do you do first thing in the morning? That's when our minds are the most programmable, right? So the first thing in the morning, what do you do? What are your thoughts go? And it's
yeah.
like even just having that conscious awareness of where are my thoughts going? Maybe I should spend 30 seconds of, okay, what am I grateful for today? Or even clearing your energy centers because of wherever you spent in dream time,
Yeah.
which that,
Wherever you went.
right? But one of the fascinating things to me is that our unconscious does drive the ship. So what if we can get to a point to where we're bringing the unconscious conscious, and it actually allows for our super conscious to now, which is more heart centered, our God selves, our higher selves that are driving the ship. It's like, goodness sakes, if we could all get to more of that state, wouldn't that be amazing of how our lives would be?
Well, yeah, and I like to think it's possible,
Oh, 100%.
opposed to someday I'll get to that point. As far as the yoga philosophy talks about that there's like 5% conscious, 10% subconscious, like you said, whatever that is, and then the rest is unconscious, like, not really quite as accessible. But I'd like to think that as if that were an iceberg, that at some point we could flip it to the point where that unconscious starts to dwindle, the subconscious, starts to become more conscious and aware. So of course, consciousness is awareness that you're existing, awareness that you're having this response or reaction. It's that background, right? That background of observing your experience. And of course, that's where, for me, meditation helps, or seeing a shaman helps me get into my subconscious, my unconscious, because the reason it's there is you don't want to look at it. Mm-hmm. The reason it's unconscious is it's scary or uncomfortable or makes you feel, yucky and crunchy and less than or whatever. And so it's scary, but it's worth it. It's worth it. But I really, like I said, I really hope that another thing that I read that was super interesting is, and it actually was in David Hawkins' book, I'm going to paraphrase it. And he just says, when there are a certain number of people on the planet that work towards more and more consciousness, dwindling how much we're unconscious or whatever, but we do it out of a space of love, it causes things all over to be upheavaled, that have been hidden, or because it's a vibrational frequency that demands it. It's like, it has to happen. So it happens for us. It happens for our family. I mean, if you just look at the way the world is right now, for, systems that we live with, everything has to be upheavaled because we're working on it. So that's exciting to me.
Well, and we're in eclipse energy, right? Which is all about bringing them conscious and forcing us. So in just as far as the collective, it's fascinating actually to witness how many astrological shifts that we've had that have been pushing everyone to either step into this stream of like, okay, we're going to go look at the shadows because the shadows are coming up in the collective, in our earth, in goodness sakes, everywhere. So you either get to look at that within the self, or people are going further asleep, right? And people are choosing out. I mean, our suicide rates have really skyrocketed this past year. It's really sad to actually see the numbers. And in my belief, it's people that are just choosing out, and that's their experience. While it's sad and difficult, and obviously we would want to help people like that to hopefully choose to stay on the planet, it's what they're choosing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always find it fascinating to just witness, because I think we're just starting. It's the first of 3 eclipses. We're about to go into this eclipse season, right? So
Tomorrow's
it's like, okay, yeah, tomorrow's the first one in a super moon too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty awesome. One of the things that, as you were talking, that I feel like, that idea of the upheaval and how we get really uncomfortable. Really, it's looking at the shadows. Our unconscious is the shadow aspect. And you can't have the light without the shadow, or the shadow without the light, right? They're both, it's the yin and the yang. It's part of the whole, the masculine, the feminine. It's actually, it's part of the whole. And when we decide to dive into it, the only way out is in. And that's something that for me, I've always reminded myself that that whole looks a lot scarier. The shadows, that aspect, that emotion, it looks a lot scarier than it actually is. And I also believe, for those of us that have been going and doing this work on the planet for a while, it doesn't have to be as painful as it used to be, is what I've been experiencing. And even with my clients, it's like, okay, let's move through that emotion, but it comes up, it moves quickly. And our emotional body is it's this beautiful tool, right? To be able to move energy quickly. And when we suppress that, it gets stuck in the chakra systems, and it causes all sorts of things, which you're very, very, you have so much more expertise on that than I do. Wow. But, it is just bringing awareness, and that to the conscious surface, and really ultimately it brings us to more of a place of peace, because those shadows aren't haunting us, and they're not living, stalking us and running the narratives. Michael Singer really talks beautifully about it, that he calls them samskaras that we carry on our heart. So those trigger points, when we get triggered by someone or something or driver in front of us, it's those scars that we have created in our life from whatever the narrative has been, whatever the trauma has been, that changes our perspective and our filter with how we see the world. So when something happens and somebody says something and we get pissed off and we react and we get triggered, it's because there's something on our heart that's created a scar. So then it's that opportunity to bring that awareness up of, okay, what is this in me that's attracting this and that's asking to be healed, so that
Yeah.
I'm not reacting, but I'm creating and going from a beautiful place in my life and being conscious.
Yeah. I love to, when I have those wounds come up, or when I have a shadow reveal itself from a trigger, to see it outside of myself. So in a way, I'm doing a visualization, and I'm visualizing that outside of me, and I'm having a conversation with it in a way that I validate, and I understand that you're here to protect me, or you had a purpose for at some point, that what is it that you need to heal, and so my understanding, I love your take on this, especially with your NLP or NPL.
NLP, it's neuro linguistic programming. Yeah,
There's so many, like NEAT and NET,
I
and
know.
there's a bunch of other little algorithms that get me kind of tripped up. But my understanding is that really a lot of the language of the subconscious and the unconscious is images, opposed to words. At least that's the way that I've understood it, and has assisted me. And maybe it's just a different way of understanding it. But when I go into a space of meditation with a shadow part, I allow that shadow part to put an image in my conscious mind and look at that image. And what is that image telling me? Is it a shape or a form, a color, a feeling? What is it? Is it radiating? Is it dull? Is it large? Is it small? And all of those types of things. And so I don't know what your take is on that. Share your thoughts.
So everyone is different with the way they process, right? Some people are more mental and visual. So you obviously are more of a visual processor. That's how you see things. I'm more kinesthetic. I feel very deeply. So more than often, it's a feeling, it's an emotion. And then I get to dive deeper into what's the thought behind it, because really there is a thought behind it. I'm not lovable. I'm unworthy. This event happened that made me feel that I was not safe to be seen, whatever it is. Usually there actually is a phrase that is held, or a belief that is words that is held in the subconscious. There are, as you're talking, there are 4 questions, and I hope I'm going to remember these correctly, that it's a really beautiful exercise to do when an old belief or an old trauma gets triggered. Is where did you first start believing that? Or when did you first start believing that? So usually it's an event that will come up. What was the learning, the gifts, and the understanding that had you not experienced that, you would not have? So usually, and this is timeline therapy too, that I'll guide as a visualization, I'll guide clients through into that event that had happened. And had you not gone through this, what would you not have grown? What is it that the unconscious mind needs to go, oh, had I not had this experience, I wouldn't be this strong, independent woman, or I wouldn't have cultivated compassion and empathy and my heart, whatever it is. So what's the gift? What's the learning? What's the understanding that had you not gone through that, you wouldn't have gained? And what would you like the new story to be? Because we get to reprogram those. We get to go back and go, okay, this is now what my story is, because there's no such thing as time, right? We know that. So right now, the only thing that exists is this moment right now in the present, which is really cool and very empowering, because it's like, oh, yes, there's all these truths of different aspects of the past and past lives. And when I was 5, those are all true in a sense. And right now in this moment, I can say to my 5-year-old self, we're okay. You're okay. And that 5-year-old self is safe here within me. And I can reprogram that childhood trauma.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. So it's so interesting. I mean, we call them programs and all these things, because technically everything that's technology in our world is basically a duplicate of something that we have within us. And I think that that is so cool, because that allows us the opportunity to reprogram, to reset, to pull in fragments, to clear the cache.
Right.
Cookies.
I like that. Yep.
Yeah. And to just, get to a point where, we can become, more conscious. And so then I take this thought of, okay, well, we have all these things that we're clearing, but I also like to think, well, where is that going to take us? Like, where are we going to eventually be sitting and existing? If we didn't have all these wounds, I mean, would life be just boring? Or I like to think of my future self. What would life be like? How can I exist in this space of pure consciousness and, eliminating the unconscious, or, eliminating how much is, so we know that over 90% of our choices are unconscious, or something to that effect. It's a huge amount. Like, we think we're making a conscious choice, but we're not, because the subconscious is so huge that it's dominating things. And, anyway, so I would just love to get your take on what would it look like to live without that unawareness determining each moment.
Well, I have several thoughts on this. So I'm like, where do I want to go? Because on one hand, it doesn't matter, right? On one hand, it doesn't matter. There is the element, again, of just being completely in the present moment of this is what my heart is wanting to choose right now, because that's what feels in alignment. And I know for me personally right now, I'm really practicing always coming to the heart space, always coming to the heart space, always coming to the heart space, as far as how I make my choices, and letting not the mind be the one that's dominating, but the heart, and have the mind be the servant of the heart, right? Because this is where our God self really lives. This is where that Merkaba energy lives. Anyway, I could go off on a tangent on this one. But I think too, I feel very strongly that, this is where I'm like, okay, where do I go and not go off on tangents? We consciously chose into these each lifetime for a reason. We really did. Now, whether you believe that we're in a karmic cycle and a karmic loop, and until we become conscious enough to actually step out of the karmic, in like continuing to choose into earth experiences,
which is samsara. Samsara is choosing back into another life experience. Samskara are the things that you keep doing in that lifetime. Yeah.
Yes. There's a book that I love that I highly recommend. It's called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. And it's a great book about a guy who passes, and he was actually an addict, and he ends up connecting with his sister after he dies, and this ends up being a channeled book. But he shares his experience of the afterlife. And because he didn't have any attachment really to this earth, because of all just his life he was living, his process was really unique. And it was the first time I read this book a few years ago. It was the first time that I went, holy shit, are we just, sorry for my language, are we like kind of karmically just keep choosing back in and because we're somewhat unaware until we become more conscious that so there's this is why I'm like, there's a tangent I could get off here. So I'm going to bring it back to where I was. But we did, on some level, we chose to come in each incarnation for a reason. And usually we all have a purpose. We all have a destiny that we're here to live out. And I feel like, again, that comes to the heart space of, you know what, in 5 years, it could still be traumatic, and we're still processing, and we're forced to process things that we never thought we would have to process in our life. But we're able to do it from the center of the wheel, or the center of the circle, which I like to look at as the eye of the tornado, right? We can have things whipping around us, but we've come to an awareness enough to where we can stand in the middle of that, be aware of it, like you said, process it so much quicker, because the tools and everything that we have, it's not as personal. It's just a process of, oh, this is an awareness, and I can move through it quicker, and I'm going to keep moving. And I feel like I've gotten to a place in my life where everyone's talking about wanting to bring in the 5D world and ascension and all these things. And it's like, I'm kind of over that. It's like, we're here now to live in this now moment. And the best thing that I can do for myself and for humanity is to live out my purpose here on this earth and move from a heart-centered place. And then everything will just transpire the way it's going to transpire. And when I feel inspired to do something, then I act on that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Totally hear you. Yeah. So pulling in, well, you know, like I heard it described this way. Basically, our life is not, you know, the past, the present, and the future. It's actually all those now moments exist, kind of like a slinky. They're all those now moments are stacked on top of each other in this right now. And so, of course, that's where the power lies, you know, is in the present moment for sure.
And it's all just information, right? Everything's
Yeah.
just information.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do with the information?
Right. True.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So what practical uses or thoughts do you have that people can, you know, can do now with visualizations to help them improve their consciousness level? Like David Hawkins, I don't know if you've heard of his scale of consciousness. He's got a scale of consciousness from 0 to 1,000. And of course, everything, every emotion that we could possibly have in this now moment resides somewhere on that scale of consciousness. And basically 200 is the level of courage, which starts to tip you into some of the more positive ones, and everything else is below that. Fear, anger, disgust, shame, all of that is down at the bottom, which we know we've been residing a lot down there, you know, as a collective. At least we've got an opportunity to look at, what is my relationship with fear? What's my relationship with anger? What's my relationship with division, you know, in society? And so we have that opportunity to, you know, address that. But like, what would you recommend as maybe some visualizations or different things that could help people rise up to at least courage, you know, which we kind of talked about and covered, which is addressing and being willing to look at your shadows and things that are being upheavaled. But, you know, any other thoughts on that to kind of really be practical uses for people?
Well, I think you touched on it somewhat in the beginning with, what do you do first thing in the morning? You know, and I would suggest to have a daily practice, whatever it is, and then to have a visualization. I'm trying to think who does it. Oh, it's Deepak Chopra. Nope, it's not Deepak Chopra. It is Joe Dispenza that does a blessing of the energy centers meditation that I love. And I did something similar that's on my website that's a little shorter because this is quite long. But just having a visualization of even checking into, if you're familiar with the chakras, checking into each chakra. What does it need? Is it open? Is it closed? Is it, you know, just asking it what it needs, blessing it, and then sending that energy out and moving through each chakra, visualizing each chakra, tapping into the energetics and asking from the heart space. Again, I'm always going to go back to the heart because that's where our true intuition lies, of what's in there, what needs to be recognized, what needs to be heard. And that's a beautiful visualization that you can do with yourself. I also love, because we're so busy, I'm trying to think of like the quick, short ones. The imagining and clearing out. I like to do this at night and each morning. Oftentimes people are not aware how much energy they're picking up from other people, from environment, from collective, from electronics. And so detaching every night, actually visualizing, we have our axonal fibers that go out from our energy body and connect every day, right? And being aware of that every night and each morning, and having a visualization where you're saying to yourself, I disconnect with anything that's no longer serving me. I send anything out of my field that's not mine and give it back. And then I call in all of my energy back into my body, and you can visualize it. And this is the thing, we were taught as we got older that our imagination wasn't a good thing, right? And it's like our imagination is actually what taps into the God brain and to these ceremonial aspects that we get to have, and these beautiful experiences that connect us here to the body, to our energetic anatomy, to the earth, to all of these, even when you do journeys with your shaman, I would bet I don't know if it's a he or she, has taken you, he has taken you probably into the belly of the mother, down into, which is your unconscious, the subconscious mind. It's your lower realm. And we use our imagination, right? So even just starting to allow your imagination to come online. So using these different, tools. Okay, I'm sending out anything that's not mine, and whatever comes in your imagination, trust it. You don't have to judge it, just witness it, just allow it. And then I like doing a waterfall of light that just goes through and clears my energy centers, because I think that that's one of the foundational pieces that should be a daily practice for all of us, regardless of awareness of consciousness. It's just a clearing out the clutter, calling back in the energy. It's 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It's not even, it's not that difficult. Most people that I've worked with really want to turn on their gifts, right? And one of the first things I tell them is to start just using your imagination. Start just playing with it. Don't judge it. Don't, just let it come in. So you're sitting there, you're sitting with your energy bodies. What do you notice? Just ask, let me see my energetic anatomy. Are there any cords? Are there any hooks? Is there anything that feels less than light? What's there? And then bring light to it. Dissipate that cord, ask for more information and trust whatever comes in. So that's a few little ones.
We can go on and on. No, those are actually awesome. I love those. Those are so helpful. And I 100% agree, because I believe in my learning and my study is that imagination resides in the pineal gland. Mm-hmm. And it's that ability it's that third eye to, to just, imagine and create and expand, which is multidimensional. Mm-hmm. It's not limited. Whereas there's other aspects of us that do have, a limitation at higher dimensions that the pineal does not, because it gives us that direct access. And so I love that. And I 100% agree. I think that imagination is it's starting to shift a little bit, but it still gives people like a feeling of that's not good, that's bad. But we have been conditioned or programmed, if you want to say, to steer away from so many things that aren't healthy, that steer away from things that are healthy and steer towards things that aren't healthy and saying that they are. So we're just completely swapped. In fact, one of the things, and I'll just bring that in here because it's coming up, that I started practicing a little bit ago was stargazing, sun gazing.
Oh, yeah.
And actually looking at the sun for a period of time.
In the evening, correct? As it's about to set?
Just before sunset or just after sunrise. Yeah, I've got a UV app on my phone just to make sure. Just double check. Okay, it's good.
We're good.
But, and that's directly affecting the pineal gland directly through the eyes and helping to crack that open to increase your ability to, to imagine. But again, thank you for saying it. Don't doubt it. Don't judge it. Just, did we pause?
You froze for a minute. Yes. I don't know if it may be mine. No, my Wi-Fi has been difficult here at the house lately.
Yeah, it was short-lived. But anyway, I think that's where it starts. Just believe and trust that it's real. And if it's wrong, who cares? It's like, it's not a big deal. You'll learn. But usually it's not. Usually it's right on if you really trust, that imagination or that voice in your head, just that voice that's telling you in the back of your mind, I have a decision I have to make in my life. And right now, I literally am still battling between my heart and my head. And they are just still like, but this makes sense. And, everything lines up and, there's no reason to question this. And my heart's just like saying, okay, you can deliberate with this all you want, but this is the direction, you know. It
So
just
you already know your answer. You're just afraid to make that choice.
yes. Yes.
I'm watching it's a I can't remember the name of it, but it's about the heart on Gaia right now. And the Heart Math Institute was talking about a study that they did, and you're probably aware of this, but they put people in front of a computer screen and they connected them up to all the probes. And an image would pop up that would either be frightening or scary or trigger some sort of a fear response or like the elevated heart response, or a calming, soothing water lily, beautiful ocean picture. And there'd always be a delay before the next image. The heart, what they noticed is the heart would respond to the image before it even was shown. So it knew what was about to come up. And
Wow.
so what they're saying is that it's our intuitive mind lives in the heart. And what's fascinating then is, and what the process too, a part of our, coming more into consciousness is sometimes what our heart wants and what the answers are that are there require us to do some things that are challenging and that feel scary. I mean, I know that from personal experience. I have completely upended my life multiple times. And I know how fearful that can be and how it does take courage.
Yeah.
But it is that breath of breathing into that space of going, okay, I asked for an answer. I got it. If this is really how I want to live my life, then I'm going to move forward in this way. Because if I do this, I'm going to end up circling back to this, and it may be more painful the next time
Yeah.
or the third time. I mean, I've been married 4 times, for God's sakes. I chose into partners to learn a lesson until I learned it. And then I was like, oh, now I got my great partner, you know? I would have probably
Yeah.
liked to learn the lesson the first time, so I didn't have to do that. But we all have our paths.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. It really is interesting. But it is a process, and I don't want to keep you much longer. Do you have any last minute like words of wisdom that you want to share about how, just dealing with life in 2021?
We signed up for this, and I believe that wholeheartedly. Whether you believe it or not, that's your choice. But I believe that wholeheartedly that we did. Like, we're here for some pretty epic transformation on the planet, and I know for me, I'm excited to be a part of it. I just had all my children's palms read this last Sunday, and it was just so fascinating to see how spiritual, like how they have all these natural spiritual gifts that are just innately within them, and then on their palms that they came with. That I'm so excited. I really am excited to see the transformation that we're going through on the planet. Um, but the last thing that I would say is, if you ever feel alone or feel that fear, to actually come back to the breath. I think we often forget that our breath is one of the biggest, most powerful tools to move energy, and it brings us into the present moment. So come back to the breath, come into the heart, slow down whatever that fear is, whatever, because when our heart actually is racing, when we're moving into emotions, the intuition, the intuitive mind that lives in the heart, goes away. It gets quiet. So coming back to the breath and calming and coming into that centered self is what I would recommend, that I try to practice too.
Great. Excellent advice. And I 100% agree. The breath is where it's at. I just, with my experiences with pranayama and yoga, it was always the earth shaking experiences when it was with the breath. The breath is what, emotion is energy, and energy is meant to move. It's not meant to be stuck. And when we contract and hold our breath, that's exactly what it does. It gets stuck in our body, stuck in our unconscious. So breath is really, it's literally almost the only way out. But of course, once you start breathing and shifting that energy, then that intuitive part comes back, and then it directs you. Okay, you need to do this, you need to go over here. Okay, this is what you need to do next, and to clear this and that. So the breath is powerful. Great advice. Well, thank you so much. You're just so delightful, and I'm just so happy to share this epic part of Earth's transformation with you. You're just a light. Appreciate all you do for everyone. You're just
Well,
amazing.
thank you. You too, Jules. It's been awesome to connect. I think you're amazing as well.